And now, a Buddy Check 13 reminder with News 13's Amy Hoyt.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to 13 Now. I'm News 13's Amy Hoyt. We are live coming to you from our studios on Harrison Avenue. We are actually in our newsroom when we do this program. And today is the 13th. That means it is Buddy Check Day. So we're reminding you, ladies, to check for lumps in your breast. And if you detect anything that's irregular, always call your doctor and be sure to get that mammogram. We have a special guest with us today, and she's here to talk about her very recent challenge with breast cancer. Please welcome Joy Noble. Hi, Joy.
Hi, Amy.
Good to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
All right, now you're like just about a year, just a little over a year out from your original diagnosis.
Yes.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell us how you found the lump yourself.
So I'm not good at dates, but this date is emblazoned in my mind. October 7th is the day I found out. About 2 weeks before that, maybe somewhere in there, I was in the shower and I was just rinsing off. I definitely do your breast checks, but that's not what I was doing. I was just rinsing off and I found the lump. And my husband is a physician here in town, a family practitioner, Mike Noble. And I immediately went to him and was like, did you feel this? And he was kind of like, and at first I had gotten my flu shot. So we thought maybe it was just, lymph node reaction to the flu shot. And we called my physician and she got me in and she said, yeah, let's order the mammogram and the ultrasound. And I think it was about a week and a half later, 2 weeks, maybe it was the next week, somewhere in there, I went and had the mammogram, and which led to an ultrasound, which led to the the doctor bringing me in.
Right.
And telling me, I think we need to do a biopsy. So the next day I had a biopsy done. And then the next day Friday, I found out I had breast cancer.
Now, when you felt that lump, did breast cancer go through your mind?
It did.
Initially?
Yes. Instantly I think anybody who feels a lump, I think that's the first thing that goes through their mind, I would think. But I think then it became that feeling of, well, maybe it's not, because when you kind of Google a few things, that's very, very popular.
Stay off the internet.
Yes.
But we all do it.
Yeah. And, but a lot of the things that were told were, it could be this, it could be that, it's a cyst, it could be, but mine, I kind of think I had already resigned myself to the fact it was, so I wasn't shocked. But when Dr. Paris called and told me, we were out at a restaurant and I don't remember anything. And it was kind of interesting. She started talking and I heard I had breast cancer. And after a few minutes, she said, is Mike with you? Because I think you need to put him on the phone. Because I didn't hear anything after that. It was literally Charlie Brown's teacher talking to me at that point.
Just a shock, I'm sure.
Yes.
Had you had mammograms prior to that?
Yes. And it's interesting you say that because I had mine the year before and everything was normal. And of course, Michael and the pandemic kind of kept us from getting a few. So I had gone about 2.5 years before I had that one. But I was due literally the month of October to have my next mammogram. And so I was right on schedule for a year. And the year before it was completely normal. And this one was completely not.
And there's no family history?
No, ma'am, not that. And I did, which you and I had discussed a little bit earlier, I did genetic testing and all my genetic testing was negative. So I have no, and I had not had any family history, no.
Now, when they do the biopsy, where do you go from there?
Where'd I go for it?
No, where do you go from there? Like, what do they do? You did all of your medical in town, correct? In Bay County.
Everything I have done, I cannot stress enough how lucky we are in this town for the doctors that we have regarding breast cancer. I had my biopsy was done on a Thursday. I found out Friday evening I had it. Having a husband that is a physician is a little bit helpful in ways because he started making phone calls, but we called a friend of ours and who was my OBGYN, Sam Wolf, and Sam kind of also got the ball rolling, and I saw Allie Moody or Allison Moody, Dr. Moody, a week later, and I was scheduled to see Dr. Haberman at Cancer Affiliates on Thursday, but my results had not come back yet. So we didn't know what kind I had. You still have to wait to find out. Just because you have breast cancer doesn't mean there's so I had no idea there were so many forms of breast cancer you could have.
And I've learned that over the course of time doing all these interviews.
Bet you have.
So how long do you have to wait now before you come up with a plan of treatment?
So when that Friday, when I saw Dr. Moody, which I know you've interviewed.
She's the surgeon.
Yes, ma'am. And I know you've interviewed her in the past, and I watched her interview. It was amazing. And it couldn't have come at a better time because I was still in the process of learning everything about what course I was going to take. We kind of kept it, I don't want to say we kept it quiet, but we kind of did because my husband and I just wanted to make our own decisions on what we wanted to do. And because it was like, do you go out of town? Do you stay in town?
Right.
You know,
and people mean well, but they put so many things in your head. And there's just so many options. You have to make your own decision.
Yes. And Mike has it's hard to go to work and have people, come in and ask about me when he's trying to focus on them. You know, their health is what's important at that point, not what my health is. But so he didn't want to be overwhelmed by that either. But we went to answer your question. We went to Allie or Dr. Moody and on a Friday. And at that point, she told me I had triple negative, which is it's a fairly aggressive form of cancer. And it was growing at a rate of 95 out of 100, which is pretty fast, obviously very fast. And I can honestly say from the moment she said it was triple negative, once again, she became the teacher at Charlie Brown's teacher, and I didn't hear a whole lot.
Just
and she started talking to Mike at that point.
You got to have an advocate.
Yes, and always for those first appointments. And if you have someone that can come,
here she is. That's
always,
Dr. Moody.
That's Dr. Moody. Love her. She's a rock star. Have someone there to listen because you really don't hear what all they're saying. You try to, but you can't.
Now, how did you make a decision to do the lumpectomy versus a mastectomy?
So because of, and this is kind of funny too, I feel like I don't know much about cancer until people start asking me questions. And I'm like, maybe I know more than I realize. Because I was genetic negative, Dr. Moody, she has said, she's like, we have no reason why this is the case, but they find that the chances of it coming back with triple negative, I have to say that too, coming back can decrease some by doing a lumpectomy versus a full mastectomy. Now, there's always a chance it could come back, and at that time, we might, look at do you go in and do another lumpectomy, or do you do a mastectomy? But for me, she felt like at my age, my diagnosis, my genetic history, all of that, it all came out that the lumpectomy would be the best route, and I'm glad I did it because it was a easier, obviously, recovery.
But before the surgery now, you have to have chemo, correct?
I did, yes. I did 6 months of 6 months of chemo. And
is that once a week?
For 12 weeks, it was once a week. I did Taxol and carboplatin every week. And let me tell you, I did it at cancer affiliates here in town with Dr. Christopher Happerman. They're wonderful. And my nurse, I pretty much had Lydia from the day I walked in till the day I walked out. A year later, she has always been my nurse. Once or twice I had someone else, but she was the person that, walked me through all of this, and she was a godsend.
So the medical team is important, the consistency, you would say.
Yes, and they're good at that. And I noticed as I sat in the chair every week, and the second 3 months of chemo is once every 3 weeks. It's the adriamycin. They call it the Red Devil. I had a friend call it the Red Soldier, and I'm kind of like, I think that's what it should be called because it's going in and killing, doing its job.
Right.
It's not, but
that's brutal.
Yes,
that's a brutal form of chemo.
It was. I lost all my hair, I lost my eyelashes on my, but I got so lucky and so blessed because I never once got sick. With
great.
all my diagnosis, with all my treatments, I've never once been sick, and I feel so lucky for that. But I was going to say, as I sat in that chair, I did notice that like you start seeing the same people because you're there, they're there, and you kind of get to know them, and you start talking to them, and you find out like one of the people on my pictures, my best friend, it was her dad. I didn't even know, I had never met him, and here he was, and but they all seem to have the same nurses too, and you see that continuity, and that's huge. It's nice to have people know who you are when you walk in and say hello.
So you finish the chemo, and then you have the surgery?
Yes, ma'am. I had a lumpectomy 2.5 weeks after my chemo. Dr. Haberman did not want me to do it that soon, but we didn't see a reason not to because I was doing so well.
And what's the recovery on that?
It was easy. I came home. My kids will laugh at me. I came home that day and mopped my floors on Sunday. I had it on a Friday, and I was mopping my floors on Sunday.
You're like
because
super
I was
mom.
Well, but Amy,
You don't
you're a
want
mom.
to just sit. Yeah, you don't want to just sit around. Either.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't do it, it won't get done the way you want it to.
There's that. Yeah.
But it took me just a couple of weeks, and then 3 weeks. I'll laugh. You have to be able to do this, and you have to be able to hold your head for about 10 minutes. And once I was capable of doing that, they had me right into radiation. So I did that for 5 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was in Bay County as well.
Yes. Dr. Finkelstein, who was with me when I ring the bell, he's the doctor that's hugging my neck.
I think we might have that video.
He did it, and he's phenomenal. I did have, I had a little bit of hard time with radiation. That was the hardest part of my entire treatment so far.
Created a rash.
Yeah, well, I broke it. It was the worst sunburn you've ever seen ever. Oh. And so I had to take a few days off to recover. It was right around July 4th. So he was like, let's just give you that whole week off. And then I came back and finished it for, the last 4 days or 6 days that I had then. And then about a month after that, I started my next round of chemo. So I'm on chemo now as we speak.
And this is the pill
yes,
form.
This is a pill form. I take it twice a day, 2 weeks on, 1 week off.
And how long is that for?
That's for 6 months also. And I just last night finished my 6th cycle, so I have 2 more cycles to go.
And that doesn't upset you at all?
No. I have no
You
issues
have a strong
with that.
stomach, obviously.
Apparently.
To eat jalapenos? Like, are you one of those people who can eat stuff like that?
I can't. I don't get,
I mean, it's a good thing. You don't think about that.
No. And something they told me, Amy, which is funny, they asked me at the very beginning of this whole thing, did you get morning sickness? And I was like, I had a little bit, but nothing bad. And they said, well, women who don't have morning sickness usually do really well with chemo.
That's interesting.
I said, who knew? So
who
there you go.
knew? Now, speaking of childbirth, you have 2 daughters, college
Yes.
age, or one's out and one's in, right?
Yes.
All right. And we will, just for fun, mention that they're Alabama fans.
Roll Tide.
We'll make my head explode here in a minute.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yes.
Good for them.
Yes.
So they're in college now. Do you worry that this creates a family history?
I do. Because of being genetic negative, I think that's obviously a positive for us. But from what I understand and what's been told to me, as they get to a little bit older, they will probably be watched more closely
Just in case.
than the average person who doesn't have any kind of history of this.
Right. And sometimes they suggest they would get a mammogram earlier than 40.
Yes. And from what, Mike has said, and, I haven't asked very many questions regarding that. I think I'm just trying to get through my own thing. And then
Right, of course.
But Mike has said that, yes, probably when they're a little bit in their 30s, they'll probably be looked at closer, or maybe even late 20s.
Now, did you check? You said you had sisters. How about them? Nothing?
Nothing. They're fine. And my sisters are 7, 9, and 11 years older than me. So they've all already made it through
An age where
menopause.
It's probably, where
The
it's
menopause, which is why,
common.
Mine is probably because of having I was perimenopausal when I started.
Do they think that plays a role?
Yes.
Because of the age.
It's
The hormones.
Yes. And 50, it's usually under 50, but I had, which I also told you, I had just turned 50 on the September 17th. And then I found out I had cancer, on the 7th of October. So it was just a few weeks. So I guess I was still in that that period of time of my body didn't know I'd turned 50 yet.
You just slipped right in.
Yes, lucky me.
Now you're a fun person and you're very positive. Did that personality trait get you through this?
Yes, 100%. And my support system, I cannot say enough about my support system. But my family is amazing. I have friends. I grew up in Panama City. That's important to also bring up. I went to Bay High, went to Jinx, Northside, the whole Gulf Coast, the whole 9 yards. And I have friends. I ate lunch today with my high school friends that I've known since elementary school. And we were all in each other's weddings. And, that's who I ate lunch with today. And they held my hand. And then I have another group of friends that I've just met through my kids. And they've held my hands, and, they had dinner every night that I had chemo. They brought dinner to my house that night. They, were there when I cried. They're there when I laughed, and
that support makes a difference.
it does.
Out of all those friends from growing up or even into your adult years, are there any other breast cancer patients?
Interestingly, that's no, but and I've made friends with people that are mutual friends of those friends, if that kind of makes sense. Right. A friend of a friend of a friend, but I have gotten to be very close, and that's another support system I have. And I told you this earlier when we were talking, my doctors both said, stay off the blogs. All of my doctors were like, don't get on the blogs, misery love company, surround yourself with positive people. And two of my sweet pink sisters, Marsha Pell, who you interviewed last month, I think, or the month before, and then Leslie Jones, who also has triple negative like me, the three of us have formed a bond, and we talk. We text each other, at least a couple of times a week to check on each other, just to say hello. When we go to lunch together, it's a 4-hour lunch, and
because only other survivors are really going to understand what you went through. I mean, the rest of us want to help, and we love you, and we're going to do things for our friends and anybody we know like that. But only someone who's gone through it can probably really
100%,
understand.
1,000% on that. Yeah. And I have met, and other people I've shocking, people like, well, so-and-so has it, or so-and-so has had it, and so-and-so. And I've talked to them too, but the three of us are all within like a few weeks of finding out together. Wow. So we kind of have gone through the whole gamut of treatments. And it's interesting because Leslie also has, like me, the triple negative. And our treatments were very, very similar, but at the same time, she went to Mayo, so things were done a little bit differently too. And also hers is different genetically, genetic. So,
and you mentioned that your husband is Dr. Mike Noble, and everybody knows him.
Yeah.
But and
could be good, could be bad. Yeah.
But you're kind of blessed in a special way. I mean, to have somebody in the medical field who kind of gets what's about to happen. Oh, or did that make it worse? It had to make it better.
For me, it made it so much better because I can't lie. There was times, like I told you, like, when Dr. Paris was like, can you just put Mike on the phone? There was times when they would be talking to me and I just didn't really want to hear what they said. And I tuned them out. And then about a week later, I would look at Mike and be like, so tell me what this means, and he could tell me. I was a nurse, but I did pediatrics, so I didn't do oncology. And that was before my kids were born. But I have a little bit of health knowledge from pulling it from way back when. For him, I probably think it might be a negative because he knows more than he ever wants to know.
And he's emotionally attached to you. You're not just like an average patient.
Yes.
Not that doctors don't love their patients, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You're his wife.
Yes.
Yeah. So was he emotional at all?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And and it's funny, I have to sometimes stop and check on him because everybody's so busy checking on me that they forget to ask him how he is. And my daughters, like, and they all want to know how the girls are handling everything. Like, are the girls okay? Are they handling it? But people kind of forget that Mike is there. So I try to always, check on him and be like, are you handling it okay? And he's funny. Breast cancer is not his thing, he obviously diagnoses it, but once it's diagnosed through his clinic, he is like, you need to go see so-and-so. So for him, he's learned, he's like, there's stuff I didn't know about it, that he's learning right along the way. But he handles it pretty well though. And I will say he has even said he has diagnosed a few patients since me. And he said it's completely different telling them.
Sure. He sees it differently now.
He sees it totally differently. And he too is an advocate for Dr. Moody and the healthcare worker at Dr. Haberman's cancer affiliates, the Hope Center, what we have here in town. He's an advocate of talk to them before you make your decision to go out of town because you might be pleasantly surprised at what we have here.
And the breast cancer survivors that we've interviewed here who stayed in Bay County, stayed here, said there's it's better on the stress level because
Yeah.
now you don't have to drive out of town. You don't have to worry about that far away appointment. So,
Some
there's
days
a
I didn't
perk
even want to go
that.
the 5 minutes that it took to go back to my house,
Yeah.
and there's something to be said about coming home and laying on your couch with your dogs
Right away.
and
Yeah.
and your kids and just your surroundings, but at the same time, it is 10,000 time percent, whatever you want to call it, a personal decision.
Right, of
and
course.
and no decision is the wrong decision. I think the one thing one of the reasons I was so happy that I got to stay here was I had the means to go elsewhere, but not everybody does. And I don't ever want those people to think that they're not getting the care that they should be getting because they didn't go out of town. They didn't go to these huge breast or cancer centers, because those centers are amazing, and without them, we wouldn't have the knowledge and what all we have now to be able to treat in this town. But you're getting good care if you stay here. You're not, and I think my doctors would be the first ones to take a step back if they felt that it was time for me to go elsewhere. That is an important part of healthcare, is being able to say we've done everything we can. It's time for you to go elsewhere, and so, but luckily, I didn't have to do any of that.
Now, you seem like the kind of person who, obviously, you're here today to share your journey. Do you offer, like, if someone wants to call you and ask you a question, what's your advice to them?
Yes. When I first found out, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I kept having people tell me, so-and-so has it. Why don't you call her? And so-and-so has it. I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be reminded about it. I'm not ready. But, and a lot of it, I think, is starting your journey. Those first few steps are the hardest. But once you have chemo or your radiation or your surgery, and then you realize that I can do this. I'm way, way, way stronger than I ever thought I was. So in turn, it's kind of like once you get in it and you realize it's going to be okay, and it's not what I had in my head that I thought it was all going to be. Then it was kind of like, I'm ready for anybody to know. I'm ready to talk to anyone. They can call me. They can text me. They can reach out on social media. I might not have the answers, but if I don't, I'll sure find out, find a way to get the answers for them.
Right.
And even if it's just as simple as, do you want to go out on the beach and scream together? We can go out on the beach and scream together.
Yeah.
If you want to cry, if you want to hold my hand, if you want to, just say, hey, you got this. I love you.
Yeah.
Keep going.
That support makes all the difference.
It does. It's huge.
It's a mental state too. You gotta get to that positive level, I would imagine.
Yes.
So that you can,
because it is scary. It is scary, scary, scary. But then you find that it's kind of like it's really not as scary as I thought it was. I'm stronger than cancer, and I'm stronger than the beast that's growing inside of me, and now it's gone, thankfully, and hopefully it stays away.
Modern medicine's a great thing.
It is. Oh, that's another thing I did. I don't think I mentioned that when we were talking. I did a year of Keytruda too, which is the new immunotherapy.
Oh.
So I had to. I was every 3 weeks. I had to go back to the cancer center, and they would do immunotherapy. It's IV. It was through my port. I got my port taken out 2 weeks ago. So that's also a huge step. I look at them as chapters.
Yep.
I slammed another chapter down whenever I finished Keytruda, and then when I got my port out, another chapter was closed. But Keytruda is it's the immunotherapy that the whole goal is it's going to teach your T cells to recognize cancer, and if cancer comes back, they'll attack it.
Wow.
Which is unfortunately your body. When the cancer cells start, they don't see it as cancer, and they just let it go, and it starts replicating. And so hopefully my body is learning, if they see it again, they'll go clean it up before anybody else has to.
Now, what do you do from here? You have to go every 6 months or once a year?
I did my first post mammogram. I had a cough, so they did a CT scan because of my cough, and they found that it was probably just some radiation pneumonitis, just a little, and so that was, but about a couple of weeks after that, they did my first mammogram and everything, and an ultrasound. And it was all surgical changes, which is what we want to see and what we expect to see. And otherwise, it was exactly the way it should be. In 6 months in November, I'll go back and do it again. And I think Dr. Moody told me that at my 2-year mark, I'll do an MRI.
Okay.
But we had asked Dr. Haberman, like, do I do like PET scans or CT scans? And he said, no. He said, we don't do that for breast cancer. He said, if you have a reason to need one, then we'll do it. But he said, otherwise, it's.
So you're still going to do your buddy checks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even now when I do it, I feel there's a lump there, but it's a surgical lump and it's supposed to be there.
It's a reminder.
Yes, it is. It's always there to remind me, hey.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
Well, we sure do appreciate you sharing this, especially it's so recent and fresh in your mind. We appreciate you coming out and walking us through it. Gives the rest of us hope should we ever see that diagnosis.
Yeah. Well, you can do it. And it's funny, I've watched these off and on, before I found out about that I had breast cancer. And obviously I've watched them more diligently since then. And everybody's story is their own story, but it still could be anyone's. And the fact you do this is huge.
1 in 8.
It's huge.
Right?
Yep. Like you and I said the other day, I feel like it's more than that.
It feels like it sometimes.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Yes, hopefully not. I look forward to the time that it's 0 and 8.
Absolutely. Well, Joy Noble, it's been a pleasure. It's been a joy. You're a joy. You got the right name.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out today.
Thank you very much.
All right. So as she said, check for lumps in your breast and then check with your doctor if you find absolutely anything. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.